Okay. Yeah.
So for our weekly questions, we're opening that modules tab and there's like a little chunk of just like, I think right now it's 5 different videos or audio.
Did you say chunk or junk?
I said chunk.
Junk is good too.
I mean, if you consider them junk, it seems like you made them. So anyway, we're going to choose one of those. We're going to listen to it. We're going to think about it. We're going to write a little, this is what this made me think of, and the question that it inspired.
Yeah.
Great. That's what I did.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. We can pick 7, 8. There are only 5 though. Yeah.
I'll go for the questions for week 2. It's from the same video.
Yeah.
With different questions.
It's a relationship, you know. As time goes on, you discover more things about your companion, and your dislike for that person grows. Hello, Dan. For those of you who may wake up on a Monday or a Wednesday restless, I teach in this room from 9:30 to 11:15. No? Yeah, 11:15. So if you have nothing to do, come by, sit back. If you want to enroll in the class, you can. Or you can just drop this class and never come to that one either. So, any other questions before we tackle luck and... No? Nothing? Sure.
For the essay, I had a question about the essay format. It seems like what I gathered from it was like there's certain questions and prompts and we respond to them. Do you want us to compile those responses into like more traditional essay, or is it just answering each one?
For me, it's better if you answer each question separately. So one part of the assignment or the writing has to do with you and your relationship to the questions or your answers. The other has to do with if you were to inject that into a social platform, how would it look like? Let me give you an example. Imagine I'm an alcoholic and I want to quit, okay? And let's just say one of the videos or audios speaks about that, you know, alcoholism and all of that. So what do I need to go through to overcome this particular disease, if you want to call it that? It's good to know the history, you know. It's not like going out with anyone, get to know their history so you can kind of make some informed decisions or choices to where exactly you want to go and what you want to do with this particular person with all the issues that they may or they may not have. And what steps do I need to take to overcome them? I don't much care about theories. You know, I want to know if you can clearly understand what steps you need to take. If I was to give you an example of steps, I'll give you something very casual, very cheesy. When I went to India at the age of 11, we didn't know anyone, so I had to make food. And little by little, I learned how to make rice. So if you were to come to my house and you were to ask me, how do I make rice, for example, I would tell you boil some water, about 2 cups of water. While it's boiling, add some salt, some oil, wash the rice, let it sit in water for a few minutes, and then put the rice in the boiling water for about 5 minutes. Okay. Get rid of the water, cut some potatoes, 1/4 inch thick, you know, add some oil to the bottom of the pot. Put the potatoes while the oil is sizzling. Then put the rice on the top, add some water, put some butter on the top. Close the lid. low temperature for about 2 hours. Beautiful rice. And I'm giving you the steps because I've made it 1,000 times. I'm not just going to tell you, go make the rice and have a good time. Okay? So, one of the nice things about going to AA meetings, I've never been to one, but one of our car washes used to be next to an AA center. And one of the nice things about the AA program is that the person who's guiding all the other people who walk into the center, he, and it's usually a he, hello, they started as a casual drinker, maybe life was tough for them, right? Maybe they got sick, maybe their kids were just rotten, maybe he made the wrong choices at the wrong time, maybe as Freud would say, life just got a bit too much, he didn't know what to do with all the problems, and so he didn't know how to paint, how to do music, so he pursued the cheapest and the fastest way of escaping the miseries of life, drinking. You numb yourself. Okay? And so his wife told him stop drinking. He didn't listen. His kids told him stop drinking. He didn't listen. He just said, I drink once in a while. And then the volume of his voice would go up little by little. Then he became a bit more abusive towards himself, towards his wife, towards his kids. And despite all the threats made by his wife, I will leave you, I will take the kids, he thought it would all be a joke. Eventually, one time, he comes home and suitcases are packed. He apologizes but goes back because it's difficult to overcome habits. Okay? And then the next day he comes home, there is no one there. Initially he becomes really, really upset, very angry. He hates everything. He may even be suicidal. But then grief will come down. He'll feel pain, he'll be lonely, he's not going to be reachable to anyone. He'll be depressed, maybe he'll drink some more, maybe he'll go into the ring and box Mike Tyson, who the hell knows. But there comes a point where there is no lower he can go. He hasn't showered, he hasn't gone out, all the blinds are shut. And all of a sudden magic happens, and I don't know how it happens. I don't know how it happens for anyone. The Westerners are, in the business of giving us a how-to life, how to overcome divorce, how to overcome cancer, how to overcome being human, how to overcome death, how to overcome wrinkles on your face. Okay. But the truth is, no one has the steps, no one knows. Some people just get lucky. It's kind of like stupid Nike ad, just go out there and do it. Look at Ella. She has hopes and fantasies. She wants to be like Chris Evert, Martina Navratilova, and all the other people. She has hopes. Every day she goes on the court for about 2, 3, 4 hours at 6 in the morning. Is she lucky enough to make it? Who the hell knows? What does it take for her to make it? We don't really know. Okay. So all of a sudden, for this particular fellow, magic strikes. He says, I'm going to join the center. And he goes there. And the first thing that he is told is, give me your phone. And all the contacts are removed. You can no longer hang out with the old friends. You can no longer do this. You can no longer do that. Because we fall back into the routines of life, into the habits. That's why inspiration is good. It's just short-lived. And going to AA is very much like going to a therapist's office. You have to bring out all the garbage that lives inside you and you try to hide. And then the stuff comes up. But because you've pushed them down for such a long time, you have no idea how they're going to make you feel once they come to the surface. And once they do come to the surface, now you're pissed. Now you're really, really angry. You're angry at yourself. You're angry for those who wanted to help you but didn't. Those who did actually help you but you didn't. You were in the right place to receive their help. And that's like carrying 2, 3, 4, 5 crosses. And it's tough. And then another magic happens. After 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years of going, back and forth, relapsing, all that stuff, all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you say, you know what? Just don't want to do this anymore. No more alcohol. No more friends. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to read the Bible instead, I just say. Or I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to find a way to make peace with my ex and my kids and all that. Now, these are the people who are guiding the AA meetings, and they do it for one simple reason. They deceive themselves, something about them caught themselves. They went through a good amount of grief and darkness and loneliness. They were able to come out of it. So whenever this person looks at all the people sitting, he knows exactly what they're going through. They're going to lose a lot of things. They're going to be sad for a lot of days. They're going to be in darkness for a lot of months, if not years. Some will make it, some will not. Steps are important. Now, the other aspect of the essay has to do with the social issue, which is if all of us in this room were addicted to alcohol, okay, transforming one human being is okay. You know, it's very difficult, but it can be done. But what do you do with all of us? Different temperaments, different ages, different hurts and wounds, different histories, different backgrounds, different passions. How do you change this society called the classroom? And you may come to realize that maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it's just not doable. So you'll only focus on one or two amongst 40 of us. I just want to see if you know what you're talking about, that's all. And most people don't, it's okay. You know, at least it's a good shot. You have another 50, 67 years to experiment with this. Does that? Did you work out yesterday, Caden? Yeah? So anyone else before we go home? That's it? Are we done? I'm not a big talker, so I can't just talk about things. Matthew. Marco.
I guess more of a question on, I guess I was wondering what I missed that.
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. So I saw the assignment about a question yesterday. I was in class. I was sort of gathering an understanding of like what some question about material that's in Canvas. But I assume I watched videos that are in Canvas and then a question based on that I'm curious about.
Yeah. So the way questions go, as far as I can understand, is there is a saying in the New Testament, do you like Jesus?
Yeah.
It's all right. You know, I mean, he had some major flaws. He was young. He wasn't married. He didn't know what attachments, responsibilities. He had no idea what they meant. But he dragged people out of their wonderful life and took them towards nowhere. But all that besides the point. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. If, for those of us in this class who have some age, I mean, in other words, we are old, like Ashley and I, Benito, maybe Dan, maybe Antoine, right? You know, you're young, you go out on dates, and you ask stupid questions. And before you know it, you have emotions flaring up here and there. And after 2-3 weeks, you look at this person and you say, I love you. Stupid. And then, of course, they'll leave you. Or you'll just get bored. Whatever. Or you'll marry them, you'll have kids, and then you'll leave. Then, very much like the alcoholic who wants to recover, you go through your dark periods. But human beings are not destined to remain alone. I mean, loneliness is tough. And so you go out there on the dating game. But you wised up a little bit because of pain. Now you ask good questions. But it took a lot of stupid dates, a lot of stupid companions, a lot of stupid life, you being stupid for a long, long time to finally, be punished by life. Now when you go out on dates, now you know how to ask, what to ask. So it takes a long time for you to be able to find the right door, knock on that door, ask the right questions, and maybe greet your host the right way so you can be let in. And all these questions that students kind of submit, they're good questions, but they're my questions. They're generated by me. You have to go through your own life, bang your head against the wall a few times, get all bloodied up, and then hopefully you'll be able to ask the right questions. But for this class, you just need to pass. So, anyone else?
Joseph.
Was it?
Joseph.
Joseph, yeah.
Are these questions or can you share them with class?
No. Yeah. I mean, you can, if you have, if there's nothing going on in the class, you can raise your hand and ask the question you submitted. And if I happen to be in the mood to enjoy the question, we'll play with it. If not, we'll pass by it. Yeah.
And there's no word count. These are
Forgive my ridiculous analogies and examples, but I'm a ridiculous man, so when you go out on a date, if you don't like the person sitting across the table from you, you will keep looking at your watch. And then eventually, once you get really, really exhausted, you look at them and say, listen, I'm sorry, but an emergency took place all of a sudden. I need to go. And what you're basically saying, you suck. I'm leaving. Right? There are moments where you go out on dates and you realize, the coffee isn't bad, the conversation isn't bad, maybe we can do dinner afterwards. But, after 10 minutes into the dinner, you realize it's a mistake, then you leave. Then you go out on dates, there's coffee, there's dinner, you take them home, you do what birds and bees do, and the next morning you realize you don't want to be with this person. And then there are dates where you end up marrying the person, or at least you have a long-term relationship, right? Ideas are very much the same. In other words, you listen to an audio and it inspires you. That inspiration creates a relationship. It may last for 5 minutes, it can last for 5 hours, it can last for 5 days. Having someone's attention is not that big of a deal. Holding that attention for a long time, that is a huge deal, and it takes a lot of work. So if you listen to all the 5 items on Canvas, and you realize, you listen to them 5 times, they suck, they give you nothing nourishing, and you want to have a relationship with these ideas, but you can't. They don't give you anything. And you're at an age where you're tired of BSing stuff. So you just say, Amir, listen, these audios suck. I can't relate to any of them. So I'm just going to come up with my own question. So if an idea out there grabs your attention, you have no choice but to keep writing and writing and writing and writing. If, on the other hand, no idea on the modules capture your interest or attention, you'll BS for a few lines and then you submit and you go your way. Yeah. So. Any one else before we go home? We're not going to go home. I'm just kidding, but.
I can ask another one.
Marcos?
Yeah.
Is it?
It's Marco.
Oh, Marco. Okay. Sure. Yeah.
So, what do you think makes a good question?
I think by the time you get to a really, really good question that is generated from somewhere deep within, you're no longer looking for anyone to answer that question for you. You know, and women are really, really good at this. You know, they go out, they want to have a companion, and in the end, they realize that there is no one out there for them, no one worthy of them. So they decide to kind of just live by themselves all alone. And they have the creativity and the genius to kind of survive it. It's fine. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to go out on dates and have a free dinner or coffee or have someone pay their rent or have sex once in a while. It just they've come to realize that their best companion is just themselves. But to get to a place of autonomy where you can be just a very good companion to your own question, it takes about 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. But for us, you know, we got a pastime, 16 weeks. So we can just BS our way for 16 weeks or 15 and then go home. Anyone else? Benito.
So there seems that there's a sort of pattern. Questions asked, and then there's a narrative. There's generally a central protagonist in this narrative, usually identified by like a pronoun you, both the singular and plural forms. And then there's a kind of existential crisis of you, the protagonist, who is this sort of universal maxim that emerges based upon the progress of this view in context and situation, and so forth. So I guess the question is, and this is a bit of a question, was there a point when this rhetorical strategy emerged in your teaching, and simultaneously was there a point where referring to philosophical school of thought or philosophical theories dropped out of if so, why? When and why?
Who said? Joseph, was that you?
I was thinking it too. Good question.
Ah, Teresa.
These compliments all the way around.
Well, let's first of all talk about teaching for a moment. You really don't know how you're going to be in anything until you are in it. In other words, you read all these books about how to be a good father, a good mother, a good this, a good that.
Here's the narrative. You.
So you read all these books about how to be good at anything, right? I remember, since Ella is here, I used to play tennis in Davis, but usually late at night with the tennis wall by the campus. And you know, when you play with the wall comes back right to you. And it creates this illusion about you that you're so good, your backhand, your forehand, your volley, your lob, everything. And then someone who's also playing next to you with the wall says to you, hey, you want to go to the courts and play? Yeah. And you think yourself, you're like Bjorn Borg, John McEnroe, above all, Roger Federer, you know? And then you go on the court, and then you play. And all of a sudden you realize how much you actually suck. I mean, you're really, 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 really bad. So teaching is like that. In other words, you take a class, you have an instructor, that instructor, for whatever the reasons are, is somewhat animated, and that instructor inspires you. You major in calculus, or math, or geography, or philosophy, whatever the case may be. So nothing in life can take place without this element of attraction. And that attraction is nourished day in and day out until it just blossoms, explodes inside you, and you say, Mom, I'm doing math. That's my major. Why? Because you saw someone in the classroom doing what you want to do 10 years from now. Now, you go to school, you make a lot of sacrifices, you get a master's or a PhD, you apply for jobs, and all of a sudden the dean calls and says, Benito, listen, I have good news for you. We're going to offer you this position. Now, you've never taught in your life. You walk in the classroom. And what you do, you become a great plagiarist in the sense that you want to mimic everything that that instructor 20 years ago exposed you to. You open your mouth and you realize there is something missing. And you have no idea what's missing. All you know is that you're not him. But for 20 years, you made all these sacrifices, getting a PhD, going to the classroom, desiring to inspire people, only to realize, well, people are yawning, he's falling asleep, he's like playing with his phone, he's playing with himself. Say, man, this really, really sucks. And all of a sudden, your entire identity is under attack. Or it may be the flip side. You know, maybe you watched Bluey. You know that cartoon on TV? It's such a stupid show. It's awful. It's like hell descending from paradise. Because it is about a family who's really, parents who are wonderful. Who's got time, patience, they're like Jesus Christs in the world of cartoons. They do all sorts of things with their kids, and their kids are so well-mannered. You don't see those in real life. I mean, talk about Australians being crazy. You know? Now, the flip side is that you read a book, you watch a movie, you're inspired, you major in the thing, you have been inspired, and you walk in the classroom, and you have no prior experience teaching anyone anything, and your mouth opens, and all of a sudden magic comes out. And people ask you, well, how do you do that? I don't know. And so there are a couple of things. If there is magic inside you, if you're a Kobe Bryant, you're just a freak of nature. We don't know how Kobe Bryants are made. We don't know how Malcolm X's are made. We don't know how Jesus Christ are made. All we know is that sometimes nature creates freaks. They come out, they inspire us, they make us and our lives feel cheap and ridiculous and insignificant, and we want to be like them. We follow them. So that's the first thing about teaching. You have no idea how things are going to unfold. Okay. The second part is people's temperament. Extroverts, in other words, those who look at the world and can relate to the physical world and all the senses and all the books they read, all the things they watch. Everybody has life difficult, but extroverts, they have it really, really easy. They can get themselves lost in the language used by Noam Chomsky. They can read books, they can have theories. It's wonderful. They can walk to classroom and spit out information left and right. I mean, they have this intellectual prowess to them, you know. They dazzle you. You sit back and you say, man, they have so much knowledge inside their heads. And they do. But what's missing in them is this infectious quality, what we call feeling. It doesn't mean they lack passion. They have a lot of passion. Because you can't do anything for too long if there is no passion. Introverts, on the other hand, they only gravitate towards knowledge, i.e. information, that can generate a good amount of feelings or emotions. You know, it's kind of like going out with someone, they have a great bank account, great car, you know, they look solid, but you say, I just don't feel them. Okay. Or you happen to be an introvert, you say, I feel so good when I'm with them, but I've been wrong about my feelings before. I'm going to look at this in a different way. Temperaments are something that's given to you at the moment of your birth. You have no idea if you're going to be an introvert or an extrovert. I mean, they're both curses. You know, one pushes you towards out, one pushes you towards in. If you're pushed towards out, you can see, you can taste, you can touch, you can hear, you can smell. If you're pushed towards in, it's like a woman who's been married or a man who's been married for 20, 30, 40, 50 years and their companion all of a sudden dies. And pain pushes you to go inside. And it's dark because none of us in this class enjoy going there. It's too much. Okay. Now, if you happen to be an introvert, the problem is you like information, but not for information's sake. You like to feel. You know, it's like having sex. It doesn't mean you like your companion. It just means you've been washing dishes and pots and pans and mowing the grass every single day. And once in a while you come and say, I just want to feel alive. So introverts have this deep desire to say, I want to feel my own existence. Okay. They are the Kierkegaards. They are the Buddhas. They are the Jesus. Extroverts are like Moses, are like Muhammad, are like Confucius. They are mostly social reformers. You know, they're very, very passive, the introverts are, whereas the extroverts are active. Does that do anything for you?
The ones in between,
Yeah, they don't really exist. They don't mean anything. They're good to manipulate and have them follow you. We call it revolution and mass movements. Justin.
Yeah, I watched the allegory of the shape of light. My second question coming up. And my question is there a difference between intuition and past trauma?
It's only been a few years since I've become acquainted with the word trauma. It didn't exist in my world, it didn't exist in my language, in my culture. And English is such a weird language for philosophy and religion. There are 3 types of intuition in Arabic. We call it lafz lawame, lafz mutma'ineh. But all those things aside, I'm not going to answer your question. Let me approach it differently. You can't understand Plato's allegory of the cave without understanding his teacher's life, Socrates. And you can't understand Socrates without understanding his teacher, a woman named Diotima, whose only life lesson was to train people how to love. But you can't really understand love without understanding 3 or 7 or 8 different kinds of love, from the most basic to the most profound. So which ones do you want to tackle? Should we do Diotima first? Should we do love first? Should we do Socrates or Plato? Anyone else with any other questions?
I want to learn a bit about Diotima.
Women. So the first thing you need to understand is that women are awful teachers. Women are just not made to be good teachers. They're not wired for that. And by teachers, I don't mean in an academic sense. Okay. Does it happen that all of a sudden you have a woman as a freak philosopher? Absolutely. Okay. Women happen to be grounded. The very fact that biologically, at a certain point, they desire to have a child, and the attachment to that kid gives them meaning, purpose, identity for about 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years. Right? To some extent, that limits them in how far they can understand things. understand things intellectually, not feeling. Men are really, really good, but they make awful students. Women make awful teachers, but great students. Men make really, really awful students, but should you find one, they can be great teachers. Okay. There's a reason why this woman named Diotima only teaches Socrates about love. That's her craft. If you go back to about 5,000 years, there is an epic. And epics are interesting. We don't call them stories. We don't call them tales. We call them epics. Epics have this universal quality to them, that should you fall into this narrative, your life will become epical. It's no longer your own personal story. Okay? It's a story that belongs to everyone. Now, an epic, the way it unfolds usually is you have a life like everybody else. At a certain point, cracks begin to appear in this life. And you try to go to Home Depot, buy some super glue, to put the cracks together, but the cracks grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you look inside every crack, you realize it's really, really dark. And once you fall in, it's really difficult to get out. Now, just in case it's a little heavy, let me unpack it. Just in case you fall victim to a pain, an event that causes a good amount of pain, as the rational animals that we are not the sort of animals who enjoy pain. We'll do whatever we possibly can to get over the pain. Whether we drink or smoke or porn or get into a fight or read a book or go for a walk, it doesn't really matter. We do what we can to overcome any pain. Okay? We are pleasure-seeking animals. Now, is it true that some people find pleasure in pain? Absolutely. Okay? Now, once you go through this cracks and stay there and go deeper and deeper, it gets darker and darker and darker and darker. There is an epic called the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's about maybe 10,000 years old, but written history is about 5,000. Okay. Founded in ancient Egypt by the way of cuneiform. It begins with lines and then images are attached. And after a while, you have this thing called language. One of the nice things about this epic is the following. If you live in Oakland, you are part of the civilized world. Civilization always, always, always contaminates you, always. If you've seen the movie The Matrix, the first one, human beings are made by the Matrix to turn out to be like a Duracell battery. The system uses you, exploits you, manipulates you in all sorts of ways, and then once it sees you as insufficient, it trashes you. Okay. Now, once in a while, people who live in the civilized world, an event happens to them. Maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's a death of a family member, maybe it's what we call a midlife crisis. And for those of you who are not yet 40, Alexandra Robbins about 30, 40, 50 years ago came out with a book named Quarter Life Crisis. That for the Western people, you no longer have to be 40 to realize how sucky life is and all the awful things you have done and all the mistakes you've committed. By the time you're 20, 22, 23, there's an avalanche coming down your way. Okay? I'm not quite sure. I mean, this is a book that was written in the 90s. We're talking about 2025. So maybe right now you have crisis at the age of 10. Okay? Now, once in a while, according to this particular epic, if you're able to map it the right way, and this is the way this is my own interpretation, and I may be completely wrong. The hero of the story, his name is Gilgamesh. And the Sumerians and all the ancient cultures, they're not like us, where you have a kid and you had this kid when you were drunk, and now you got to figure out what to name this kid. So your wife chooses page number 85 from the yellow pages, and you choose like page 98 and you put two words together and then you get Joe Schmo. Okay. Name has to match your soul. It has to match your spirit. It has to match the thing that's most creative inside you. And so his name was given Gilgamesh, which means there is something problematic about this chap, this kid, that he's always trying to look for something that will bring his youth to the surface. That he wants to live an inspired life. He just doesn't want to be the regular basketball player. He wants to be a Kobe Bryant. You know, he wants to live big. It's good greed to have. It's a good lust to have inside you. Now, here's the thing you need to know about Gilgamesh. All of us in this class have cracks in our lives. But because the cracks are painful, we try to kind of look the other way. We want to get rid of the pain. We don't want to be intimate with pain. So Gilgamesh has dreams. And that's another thing we'll talk about later on, hopefully, in the semester. That dreams are profoundly important. They are messages from the gods. You know. Diotima had a dream that Socrates is going to visit him. Socrates had many dreams. René Descartes in the 17th century. The point I'm trying to make is the significance of dreams themselves. A fellow walks into his life. But the only way you can bring someone who lives in the forest, and the forest in the ancient world is always symbolic for innocence, purity, someone who was once in the civilized world, but left it. If you have watched the movie Horse Whisperer with Robert Redford, he lived in Chicago, made lots of money, but he used to live in a farm, came to realize that big cities, you know, people never sleep, it's always fun, you're always on edge, you're always on the move, you know, you're full of life, but you're full of the wrong life. So it goes back to his origins, the farm, where things are quiet, where he can be with nature, with his animals. And so someone needs to tame this man whose name is Enkidu. And Enkidu is there only for one reason. He was born for one reason. He wasn't born for me. He wasn't born for you. He was born for Gilgamesh. And that's another important thing you should consider. That if you happen to have some religious sensibilities to you, if you believe that this entire thing was created by some magical force, for lack of a better word, let's just call it God. Maybe it's just nature. I don't really know. Okay. And nature doesn't usually produce things to junk it. Nature has a tendency of recycling everything that it creates. It has a purpose. So every time someone walks into your life, pay attention. There's a purpose for their presence in your life. Now, it takes a long time for the person in the civilized world in the city of Oakland to kind of recognize and accept that. Because first, it's very, very crowded. Then you have shitty human beings walking into your life all the time, you know. And so your sensibilities are dimmed in really profound ways. Enkidu doesn't want to visit the city. And the name Enkidu in the Sumerian language means the most innocent of humankind. How do you, go to Yosemite. For those of you in this class who have ever gone to Yosemite or some place with a lot of trees by the ocean, something happens to you. It's not even up to you. You can't even will yourself to be the same person. Nature just imposes itself onto you. And after 2 weeks or 2 days or 5 minutes of being at Yosemite and it's time for you to come back to Oakland, you say, do I really need to go back? I don't really want to go back. Well, what's in the city? Nothing really. You know. And so the only way they come to realize that Enkidu will be pushed into the city so he could meet Gilgamesh, so he could make Gilgamesh remember who he once was. There's only one way. Go to a brothel, a place where women have sex with men. But I'm not talking about 20th century sex and our definition of sex. I'm talking about brothels that used to be sacred temples for the gods and goddesses, only occupied by women. Men were unworthy to occupy them. And kids from a young age, through the hands of their own parents, especially their own mothers, would be taken to the temple. They would knock on the door and say, if you think my daughter has magic inside her and she has the power to transform the civilized, undigestible human being, i.e. man, into something pure, something significant, if you can make this man an epical man, take my kid. Okay? And then these kids, young girls, are trained rigorously for years. They need to understand human body, human biology, human psychology, human spirituality, figure out where the G point is, you know. And so they chose a woman whose name was Shamat. Shamat goes before this man named Enkidu, disrobes. Enkidu just sits there and washes her 6 days and 6 nights. And then they lay together. It's too bad no one was there to video it. And they have sex for 6 days and 6 nights. You talk about superhuman powers. But here's what you need to know about Enkidu now. Enkidu now is a conflicted man. You know how let me digress as I usually do. Sometimes you have sex, and it's because biologically you need it. Psychologically, you just feel lonely and pathetic, and you just need the warmth of another body next to yours. And anyone can do. Dog, cat, rat. Take it from me. Okay. Caitlin, you look puzzled. So, then there are moments where, kind of like what Benito goes through once in a while, you look at someone and you fantasize about them, and you don't know why. And then you say, will there ever come a day where I'm like looking at her? I'm a hetero, so I'm just going to use a woman. And the opportunity comes. You're sitting in a class, and the instructor is kind of one of those useless ones, and they do like, group exercises, 5 groups in a class, and there you are sitting next to the person you've been adoring for like 10 weeks, and your eyes meet. And then you're shaking, you're nervous, And then all of a sudden you spit out, would you like to have coffee after class? Sure. And then you have coffee, and then you fantasize, will there ever come a time where I'm like holding her hands? And lo and behold, 2 minutes later, there you are. But, human greed, there's no limit to it. You hold her hand and attraction grows, lust grows, fantasies grow, and you say, will there ever come a time where, like, my lips are on hers? And lo and behold, there you are, And you're so nervous. But then you say, will there ever come a time where, and there you are, in the classroom. There's the 2 of you. And you realize sex all of a sudden has a different meaning, a different quality. And it's founded on love. How it happens, why it happens, who the hell knows? And no one really cares. The truth is, it spices it up. Enkidu lived in the forest all of his life. He didn't need to talk to human beings. Animals were his companions, you know. But now that he has sex with this woman, he is both innocent as well as contaminated. So wherever he goes, he can't get rid of the conflict. And that's really just our position in life. You make a lot of money, but there is no passion. So you quit. It's a great, solid relationship, but for some strange reason, you're just not happy. You know that your grade depends on this, following the format, but you say, screw it. I'm just going to write the way I write. I want to be creative. You get an F and you don't really care. At least for that moment in time. I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. What was the question? Yeah, it happens to me all the time. All right, anyone else? Justin, I'm sorry, I know we're supposed to talk about something. Yeah, Antoine.
So, last class,
Yes.
I asked you about your perspective on the ethics of having children.
Yes.
And you said something along the lines of, like, it just happens, it's not a matter of reflection. We are driven by our biological and evolutionary impulses. So it just happens, it's not a matter of reflection. Since any action we do is based on a biological or evolutionary impulse, I was wondering, how do you evaluate or reflect on, like, the goodness or wrongness of any action?
Like what?
Like rape.
Well, I'm not going to get into that. So, okay, thank you. If you want to learn how to play the piano, you will bang on the keys for a while until you realize you're just giving yourself a headache. So you buy a teacher. You know, you give them 50, 60 bucks an hour. And there are definitely going to be rights and wrongs. Anyone who knows anything about anything, they're like the Bible. It's what we call a canon. They're the measurement of what right is and what wrong is. It's something that all of us parents in this class know. There's certain things about your kids that they can do. There's certain things they can do. There's certain questions they can ask. There's certain questions they can't ask. There's certain questions to which they will have an answer to. There's certain questions they won't. And as a parent, you know when the time is. Okay? Hopefully. So, the gray area, that everything is right, everything is wrong, there are no answers, whatever, it's just a stupid way of doing life. And it's usually a position held by novices, those who are not good at anything, and they're winging life, which is most of us, if not all of us. Okay. Second part of your question, which is about reflection. Reflection is not something that we ought to do. We shouldn't think about things too deeply, because reflection will always counter life, will always go against life. You're not down here to think deeply about anything, because nothing makes any sense. And when you become like an Albert Camus, the Algerian philosopher, you'll end up with this philosophy of the absurd. Why do you get married? Why do you want to be in a relationship? You're lonely and pathetic. So your companion comes home and asks you, why are you with me? What are you going to say? I'm lonely and pathetic? No, you lie. Why are you in this class? You're not here for curiosity, man. You're here because you want to secure your future. But death is always around the corner. What future? Where are you going? And should you reflect a bit too deeply about anything under the sun? It's a dead-end road. So reflection is not part of who and what we are. But here's a tragedy. Because we make choices, and because we lack life experience, and because oftentimes those choices come back to haunt us, pain is always sitting next to us, waiting to show its face. And once pain comes, with it comes loss. With loss comes grief. With grief comes sadness. With sadness comes loneliness. And if you can't overcome these particular emotions, like frustration, anger, then you get depressed. Just hope that it doesn't become chronic depression. Now, you and I are very, very lucky because there is this component inside us called forgetfulness. It's something I shared with my students yesterday in class. March of last year, I wasn't feeling well. I go to the doctor and they say, you have a bad heart, arteries. So I had an open heart surgery, triple bypass. Okay. Now, you would assume that after being so close to death, that I would change certain things about myself. And I have, but they're very modest changes. Eat well, exercise every day, don't consume too much sugar. I was right there. The death was waiting for me. The component I have inside me, very much the one you have inside you, is called forgetfulness. We forget. You need to have a good amount of pain so that you could always remember. And remembering is tough, because remembering is like carrying a cross on your shoulder. Imagine you went out with this person. It was just the wrong person. You spent 10 years with them, spent lots of money, and you're no longer 20. You're like 40, you look like shit, right? And you say, I never want to do this again. I never want to make a mistake again. But as time passes, the pain, its intensity diminishes. And then you go back to being your old self. You make stupid mistakes again. And that's what happens. We forget. So it even doesn't matter how deeply, how profoundly, how intensely you reflect. Because your organism will say, I'm not going to let you do this to me. I will force you to forget. And you will. What was the last part of your question?
I think you covered.
Yeah, well,
a
yeah.
lot of stuff.
So,
I think I just asked, but should someone, reflection is part of who we are, but if I just were to ask someone, okay, should you have a child? But can you ask that question knowing that reflection is not who we are, and maybe they haven't experienced a certain degree of pain, so we can reflect.
there was a Greek poet by the name of Pindar. If it wasn't for old age, if it wasn't for sickness, there's a good chance that people wouldn't have kids. But you're a little too young, and you may be one of those hippie dreamers that the world is bad, climate is bad, food is bad. Why the hell would I want to bring a child into this world? And I agree with you. You're absolutely right. If you can find a woman who says, Antoine, I love you, I will love you forever, death, only death do us part. She's like a Mormon, And I don't want to have kids because I'm a Buddhist too. Life is suffering, suffering doesn't end, and I don't want to bring another child into this world to suffer. It's just going to be you and I, honey. There comes a point that your honey is going to lose interest in you. There's going to come a time where you're going to lose interest in your companion. Life is enormously boring. It is boring. It's just a matter of time before boredom knocks on your door and says, listen, I know you love this video game, but it's no longer interesting. Then comes this tragic part of you, and it's a tragic part because of, I think, what Freud had argued. Your most faithful companion, you can no longer rely on it. You want to get yourself to the fridge, but your knees hurt. You want to go pee, and you go, but nothing comes out, and you can't sleep. You can't see well. You don't remember things well. You can't hear well. You need a community. You need a support system. In this day and age, you're going to be tossed in a nursing home. Who's going to take care of you? Your parents will be dead by then. Your siblings, they'll have their own troubles. You have kids because they are, hopefully, they'll be your lifesavers. But here's the problem if you want your kids to be your future crutches. Spend a lot of time with them, which means you have to sacrifice your own dreams, your own joys, your time with your friends, watching movie, playing golf, smoking, drinking, just being stupid. You got to take them here and there. You got to spend money on them. But more importantly, you got to spend time, quality time. And if you happen to be a reflective human being, every time you spend time with your kids, you realize how stupid you are and how stupid they are. But then the fear strikes you. In a few years, you're going to be 90. Who's going to take you to Kaiser? Your kids. So you have kids both because of instinctual reasons and political reasons. There is a reason why human beings formed communities. You really, really need other people in life to survive life. You don't need to like me, Antoine. All you need to do is be a bit political. You're no longer a young man. You need this class to transfer. Play this stupid game for 14 weeks. Do the ridiculous assignments. Ask your silly questions. Hear my even more silly responses. Get a C or a B or an A and get yourself to a bigger, better school, and that's it. It's a game all of us have to play.
Awesome, thank you.
But don't reflect. Oh, yeah, Marco.
So, I think from what I've been hearing, at least of what you're teaching, honestly, it sounds very pessimistic to me, right?
Yes.
So I'm wondering how you come to that perspective.
Yes.
I couldn't really, for myself,
Yeah.
if I was thinking in that way, I'd have a very hard time.
You would. But this is what I do for a living, so it's fun for me.
Why is it funny for you? Why is it work?
First of all, the only difference between a pessimist and an optimist is that the pessimist has more information. Let me give you a couple of examples. Here's a pessimistic philosopher. To be born is to suffer. Some pessimistic lad told that to us some 3,000 years ago. I think his name was the Buddha. Here's another one. Do not store your treasures down here. That was, I think, Jesus. And you know what treasures are, right? I'm not talking about gold. I'm talking about anything to which you're attached. Anything that gives you hope. That's a treasure right there. You walk into things with hope. You're attached to hope. Just wait. It'll be crumbled. It'll be crushed. So, I'm not that pessimistic. I'm actually encouraging you guys to go to school, to continue with your education. If you were to follow the Buddha's dictum, you'd probably jump from a bridge. The other thing about pessimism is, have you ever kissed anyone? Well, hopefully one of these days you will kiss someone. Tongue in cheek and all. After you put their tongue in their mouth and you give them a good mouthwash, go to YouTube and watch some 5-10 minute clips of human saliva and what lives in human mouth and what happens when you exchange salivas. And I assure you, you will want to puke. Whenever you understand anything really well, just wait for the dark clouds to come your way. That's just life. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't live life. It means that you should have inside you about 20% of light. 20%. That's enough to carry you to be 90 or 100, and 80% dark. When you're 80% dark, imagine you've bought a car and it's a lemon, right? Now, every time from that point on, after you sell this car and decide to buy a brand new car or buy a car, what do? You open the hood, you take it to a mechanic. Why can't you trust people? Well, because you've been burned. So the more you understand, and the more your hopes and dreams are punished by life, you have no choice but to be reflective. And reflection makes you a bit darker, a bit more gloomy. That's just the way things are. There's nothing wrong with it. I know America is a yuppie culture where people just want to be happy, you know, but that's not what 90% of the world experiences. Life is tough. It's not just tough, it's fucking tough. Times a million. I'm upset now. Yeah.
So does the glass know it's half full or half empty?
Well, it depends how thirsty you are. See you Thursday? Yeah. Sure. Can we talk about this on Thursday? Is that okay? Storytelling. It's good to see all of you. Listen, just in case some of you have difficulty with this class or me, just raise your hand. You know, it's okay. I don't take things personally. I mean, I may fail you, but I don't take things personally.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Thanks.